Melanin fam, it's your girl Shelby.
And I'm Erica.
And welcome to another episode of
All Things Melanin TV. So we're so happy that you joined us again. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe and share with a friend. So today we are going to talk about something that Erica and I actually, in our private friendships and conversations, along with our friends, talk about a lot. And it's navigating corporate America as a Black woman, and oftentimes being the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we are thankful to have jobs. We are thankful that we can pay our bills. And I think overall for me, particularly in the past couple years, like the past 4 to 5 years, I've had amazing experiences as a Black woman in corporate America. I just think that it's different because I feel like a lot of times we are the minority in those situations. And I think that sometimes it's kind of like, you know, for me, like on the outside looking in, it's just a different experience. So I want to start out this episode with a little story, and I think that'll be a really good segue for us to go into this week's episode. So a while back, we had a company event where it was kind of like it's kind of like an icebreaker, you know, warming the room up, all the stuff. And the person who was facilitating it, she was asking everybody, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how comfortable do you feel bringing your whole self to work? And it's so interesting because when me and my colleagues that are Black were talking, we were like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're at 8. And for us, 8 is a healthy number because we feel like we can be ourselves in a healthy way to an extent. But also we can keep privacy and different things. But obviously, if you know, like, there are just certain things that we can do that we can't do that other people can do. And as we went around the room, a lot of people were like, I'm a 9, I'm a 10. And then I noticed when they ask Black women or us, or they asked this particular girl, that was a Black girl, and she said, I'm an 8. And she said, what do you have to do to be a 10? She was like, nothing. I want to keep my job, so I'm always going to be an 8. And I think that is such an interesting and telling thing because when I was having a side chat with them, we literally all said the same thing. Like, there are just certain things that we probably can't do that other people can do in our experiences. And like, we bring our whole selves to work, but to an extent. And we also tend to be a little bit more, you know, private and keep a few more details to ourselves. So just kind of starting off today, what industry do you or have you worked in where you are the only one that looks like you? Or, like, I guess a better way to say it is, like, what has been your experience working in corporate America, friend? And while working in corporate America, have you been the only? And if you have, worded question, like, what's been your experience? Yes, and yes. So the main industries have been marketing, creative communications, tech. And the most recent experiences, well, I would say all of my corporate big girl jobs have always been the only Black girl on the team, the only Black girl in the entire company. So, but I will say, background of just my upbringing, I've always been the only Black girl in the classroom. I've always been the only Black girl in the neighborhood. So to me, you would think that I would be used to it when I get into like my adult life and being the only Black woman in my day-to-day work environment, but I've never gotten used to it, if that makes sense. It's just kind of like a thing that I know how to maneuver in. And it's not anything, like you said, to the scale of 1 to 10. I would say mine is probably a 7, because it's not that I'm not showing up as my full self, but it's more so I'm like, I have to be aware that I cannot sit up here and cuss on this conference call like some of y'all be doing. I cannot sit up here and say certain things about certain people that you guys do, because the next thing you're gonna say is, oh, well, Erica, she said, no. So there's just a certain way that I know that I feel like I have to carry myself in those types of environments. And so, especially when I'm in my most recent career was leading a team, and I'm not only the only Black person, the only woman. So I've been in that situation, and then the youngest. So it's like when you are the only person that looks like you, that is your age, you're kind of looking around like you don't really have any peers here.
Right.
But that can be very intimidating. And we talked about this on another episode about imposter syndrome. Like, do I even deserve to be in this room? Do I even deserve to be facilitating this meeting?
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, God has you in this position for a reason. And maybe you are the representation that needs to be seen here. Right. And so for me, I would say I've always dealt with being the only Black woman in the room or the only Black woman in the company. And I still struggle with it because not to say that anybody makes me feel like I'm the Black girl. Like, nobody makes me feel like that, or nobody makes me feel uncomfortable. But it is a reality that I do have to show up. I can't just show up any kind of way, looking any kind of way. Like, I do put this wig on. I do put this wig on. I'm not going to show up in my straight back cornrows to the meeting. Like, I can't do that. So I do feel like we do have to kind of turn it up a notch more than our other counterparts. But I just feel like it's something that I've always experienced, and it's always a thing that I'm always going to have to know how to maneuver around. So
right.
What about you?
Yeah, so I definitely, to your point, friend, I think that pretty much we have to code switch. Like, this kind of thing. And I think a lot of people do it, particularly women of color, particular, black and brown individuals. I have experienced it, I think, for me. So currently in my current role, I am not the only Black person on the marketing team. Thank you, Jesus. And I have found other Black individuals, way more than I thought were in the company, which has been really refreshing and really great. So with my experience, I worked at an agency a couple years ago, and it was a smaller agency. I think at our max capacity while I was there, it was probably like 10 or 12. At our lowest capacity, like 6 or 7. Only Black woman, only Black person, pretty much the only noticeably person of color on the whole agency and team. And I will say and preface this by saying that, like, everybody treated me great. I didn't have any differential treatment or anything like that. But I think, particularly when you don't even have like an ally that looks like you or anything like that, I think that can be a really lonely place and a really just, I don't even know the word, friend, but just a very weird feeling type of thing. Because I think, like, just when things are happening, you're like, am I going to be the first to go? Or, if I mess up, dang, I really messed up. Like, are they going to let me go because of this? Or like, what are they thinking? Like, and did they hire me did they really hire me because, like, I'm really good at my job, which I am? Or did they hire me because they wanted to show diversity and all of the things? And I think that, like, whatever questions or feelings you have, I think obviously they're valid and I think that they're normal. But I think one thing that I've had to realize, and not even realize, but I think just going forward, it is difficult to be the only Black person in a space, or to be the only person that looks like you, and to not have community, to not have an ally, to not have somebody to lean on. And so I think in those scenarios that I have found allyship in that scenario in a different space and place, because I was really fortunate that at the time my director was and is an amazing human being, and she advocated for me in ways that I could never advocate for myself. And she stood up for me in ways and made sure that I had everything that I need, that I was fairly compensated, and she gave me the room, the opportunity, and the confidence to just really grow in that environment. And so what I will say is, if you're in an environment that you are the only person, it sucks. All right. But what I will say is that make sure that you're filling your cup outside of work, in places and spaces where you feel loved, seen, and heard. I think maybe if you're in a certain industry, like maybe seeking out clubs and organizations that are by us for us. For instance, like, I'm in marketing. I work in marketing. So like, there is a Black Marketing Association. There are Black Communication Association. So find community and network outside of work, and then also see if you can find somebody that you trust that is an ally inside. that makes you feel seen and heard at the least. And I think, like I said, I think that in certain careers, let's just be honest, like we're not going to see a lot of us. And I think it's just kind of, it is what it is. But I think to Erica's point, that sometimes like you have to be the representation that you don't see, and maybe you will be the stepping stone for more people, to come in. But
yeah. So the next question thing we have on here is, have you ever felt like you're the only one in the room? And because I am, but no, like I said before, nobody actually makes me feel like you're the black girl. But it's something I'm always aware of. So with me, I do feel sort of like I have to be on 10 all the time,
Right.
like show up as my best self, like not that you wouldn't want to, but you get what I'm saying, like showing up to prove myself more than probably some of my counterparts would feel like that they need to, especially when I have a role of leading a team or leading meetings. So feeling like the only one in the room, it's literally every meeting. Like I'm literally the only one. Like, and then on top of that, being a black girl in a male dominated space as well, it's again, like I said before, you would think that I am used to it, but I'm not, because before in college, I majored in something in architecture, and that was mostly men, so I've been in these spaces for years where I am the only one. So that's when I learned to navigate through it and say, you know what, my purpose is in this. Maybe God wants me to be a trailblazer in the spaces that are really male dominated right now, or non-black dominated right now. So if you are like me and you're like, dang, where my people at? Like, maybe you are the people that God has you there.
Yeah.
Because that is your purpose, and that is you. Maybe you're supposed to pioneer something in that space. So don't think that like, dang, I gotta leave here because I don't see none of us here. And let me tell you something. Side note, I have worked in jobs where it was all black people.
I don't want to do that.
And I'm just gonna say, never again. That's what I'm gonna say to that. But to end this, what do you think are some tips to help people or us navigate this?
Yeah, I think one way is depending on where you work. So currently where I work, we have ERGs, and we actually have an ERG for Black women. That's where I found all the Black women. I was like, I didn't know all y'all worked here. And it's so funny. Even before I got my job, like when you research a job, and I had told my homegirl that works there, that works there now, that we're cool. I was like, girl, I saw you on LinkedIn, and I was like, she about to be my friend. And is she my friend? Because I have a history of making people my friends. And so that's been good. So what I would say, to get back on track, is one, to seek out if there are any resources at your job. Do you have any employee resource groups that that you could join to meet more people? If you don't, can you start one? If you can't start one, like maybe you put a coffee date on somebody's calendar, or you meet with them for lunch or after dinner. I think that sometimes you have to create your community if you don't have one. I think another way to deal with it is honestly to make sure that outside of work that you are filling your cup in spaces and places that pour into you and bring things of joy, because there are going to be scenarios where you are the only Black person in the room. There are going to be scenarios where you feel like the only person in the room. There are going to be scenarios where you just feel out of place, maybe because you don't look like everybody else, and you can't do the same things that everybody else does. And I think that honestly coming to terms with that is very helpful. Honestly, I like it because I just be being quiet. I would say definitely try to find spaces and places that are supportive of you, and resources. For instance, do you have any employee resources groups that you could join that are dedicated to multicultural, Black women, Indian, whatever the case may be? Make sure you're pouring into yourself outside of work, in spaces and places, that look like you, but also seeing if you can find an ally that you feel comfortable enough to be more comfortable in that space. What about you, friend?
I'm gonna take away those takeaways for myself, but to add on to that too, it's just because you are the only one in the room doesn't mean you don't belong there, or that like don't make
really
yourself feel like you don't belong there, especially if nobody's making you feel that way. So that's what I would add along to that, is that you actually do belong there. And like I said earlier, maybe you are meant to be that only person in the room to show that representation, because you may be the only person of color that these people will ever come into contact with. Like, let's keep it real. So that's what I would add to the takeaway. So I want you to leave an affirmation before we leave, and just put, let's see, put I belong in the room. Okay, as the only one, only Black woman. You got this.
Yes.
You are killing it.
You got it.
You got this. So be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode drop. And we will see you right here next time on All Things Melanin TV.
Bye.
Bye.